Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. My name is Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
This week, we're talking about the history of the PlayStation Portable Part 2.
Yeah, we're going to do games probably next week because we wanted to spend more time. We want to get a really good list together. But today...
Oh, here you go. Send your PSP picks in now. Then we don't have to make it up later on the backside. There we go.
Let's do that. Hey, Matt, in Japan. Now is the time. Help us out. Yeah, that's good. Then we don't have to do like a backup thing. We can just do a call for games. That would be way better. Okay. So today then I'm going to start us off. We're going to talk about sales. Because who doesn't love to hear sales numbers? I do. I know Tyler does.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this. So in the United States, the PSP has sold 10.47 million copies by January 1st, 2008. That was according to the MPT group. That's the first 4 years of the system because it came out in 2004, if I remember correctly. Okay? And at the end of 2004, it was like November 2004. So in Japan, the PSP was also a huge hit because we all know Sony products sell very well in Japan because Sony is a Japanese company. And the week of March 24th, 2008, the PSP nearly outsold all other game consoles combined. It sold 129,986 units in 1 week. And Sony's always they're just killing it in Japan, you know? It's like Microsoft can't even get in. It's great. Good for them. You guys are doing great stuff. Okay,
Sony and Nintendo always crushing it.
Always crushing it. From 2006 to the third quarter of 2010, PSPs by that time had sold 53 million units. So it's a big old jump there, okay? And during the last few years of its life cycle, 2011 to 2014, sales of the PSP started to drop because it was kind of like, well, it's ending,
Old
you
news.
know?
And especially because the PS Vita came out in 2011, I want to say.
Yeah, and so the PS Vita, it was like, can't compete with yourself. And then shipments to North America ended in January 2014. So think about that, though. Like 3 years later is when it finally ended.
Yeah,
That's
that's pretty impressive.
It's pretty good. 3 years after the PS Vita came out, is what we're saying. So during its lifetime, the PSP sold 80 million fewer units than the Nintendo DS. So that's something important to note. They did lose the handheld war, technically.
Yeah, if they lost in that they didn't beat Nintendo, but I think it was still overall like successful, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny too because you look at these sales and you're like, well, why did it sell so? I mean, it couldn't beat Nintendo, so they sold well still, but they didn't sell as amazing as Nintendo. Well, they had some marketing problems, is a way to put it shortly. So in late 2005, Sony hired a graffiti artist, well, multiple graffiti artists actually, to spray paint advertisements for the PSP. And they did this in 7 big U.S. cities. I think Philadelphia was one of them, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. And according to Sony, they were paying the businesses and building owners for the right to spray paint their walls, but people were a little like, you're hiring a company to do graffiti, you know, and it's kind of a weird thing. So people kind of looked at it kind of weird. That wasn't the big controversy. That was the beginning. But there's 2 pretty big ones. The first being that 1 year later, Sony ran a poster campaign, and this was in the UK, and the poster had the slogan, "Take a running jump here." But it was at a train station platform, and people thought it was like a suicide joke.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that was the first big no-no. And so it was in Manchester Piccadilly Station, and it was on the train platform. And it said, "Take a running jump here." So that's not... No, we got to do that. So they removed that quickly. Like, got rid of that. We don't want anyone to know about that. That's bad. And then in 2006, and this is a really weird one, like to the point where I feel like the marketing company they hired is probably not around. This is a pretty big mistake. And okay, in 2006, there was a billboard advertisement released in the Netherlands, and it depicted a white woman holding a black woman by the jaw saying, "PlayStation Portable White is coming." So, yeah.
Yikes.
And there were 2 similar advertisements. One showed the 2 women facing each other in equal footing in fighting stances, and the other showed the black woman in a dominant position of the white woman. And so it's obviously like this is super racially charged. And Sony stated that the purpose was to contrast the white and black versions of the PSP, but the advertisements were interpreted as being racially charged. I'm like, yeah, because you're using people. Like, you shouldn't
that's
be
real
using
bad
people.
call there.
These were really bad. And so these advertisements were never released in the rest of the world. They actually started in the Netherlands and they were shut down immediately. So I guess that's kind of a save by Sony, because I didn't even know about this until I looked it up. But the advertisement attracted international press coverage, obviously. And Engadget actually said that Sony did this on purpose because it's kind of that whole, like, no publicity is bad publicity thing.
Ooh,
So they
yeah.
think that Sony knew what they were doing and was trying to essentially, like, oh, we made a mistake, but now, hey, the PSP's in the news, like, kind of like that. So that's the really bad one. Yeah, that's the really, really bad one. There's one more, too, where Sony, on December 2006 was a bad year for them, PR marketing-wise, and they had a guerrilla marketing campaign in which advertisers pretended to be bloggers who desperately wanted a PSP.
Ooh, I remember something about that.
Yeah,
I just remember that briefly because this was like still a new time for blogging and like advertising on the internet, and so it wasn't quite as well known that like companies could do a thing like that where they would you could hire somebody to basically pretend to be like grassroots advertising, you know?
Yeah, they're just
super
lying
interesting.
essentially to the public. So
Yeah.
that's the last one. And now this is my thoughts on the whole thing. If you remember, PlayStation always wanted to be the cool one, you know? Like, whereas Nintendo was like, we're very focused towards family and kids. I think this is Sony really like trying to rebel. This is Sony's teenage years, you know? They're trying to be rebellious, trying to sell some PSPs, and oh boy, did they whiff. This is just my personal opinion on this whole thing. I remember thinking when we were going back to our whole Crash Bandicoot days, you know?
Yep.
Like Crash was supposed to be like the rowdy, crazy party guy. And I'm like, they're trying to do that, but with the PSP, and they're just whiffing on all the wrong fronts. So that's the marketing sales point of it. The homebrew scene is the next thing we're going to talk about. And I actually found a lot on this. I found a really good New York Times article from 2005 about this. So I pulled a lot of information
so
from
that. Would have
that.
been the super early days of the homebrew scene then.
Yeah, it was actually the second hack. So I'll get more into detail. But so the PSP is probably considered, and you can back me up on this, Tyler, one of the best consoles for homebrew and hacking. It's good to say that, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe even the number one. Who knows?
Yeah, especially at the time, because it was powerful enough that you could run, like, they could really do some cool stuff, like run Super Nintendo emulators or even up to Nintendo 64 emulators and original PlayStation games. Like, before that, sure, other consoles had been hacked. Like, the original DS kind of had been hacked. Maybe not at this point, but like running homebrew on like a Game Boy Advance was like not, it was like cool. You could maybe do it, but it wasn't like that useful. But the PSP made it actually useful and very cool.
Yeah, and it was partially because on June, okay, this is where the New York Times article I found starts at this date. On June 15th, 2005, hackers disassembled the code for the PSP and distributed it online. So, and this wasn't the first time the system was hacked. The year before, hackers actually cracked the original PSP shortly after its release in Japan. So it was pretty quick. They got on it.
The PSP 1.0 firmware that PSP's launched with in Japan was like, it had basically no sort of protections against running unsigned code, which was very interesting.
They took advantage of it. Oh,
Sure
how
did.
they did. And the problem with this whole thing, too, is Sony couldn't keep up with it. It was just so fast. So in that New York Times article, in the 2005 hack, the June 15th, 2005, and this is important, too, and this is probably why it was reported in the New York Times, this is the 1.5 firmware, which was the firmware that was released when Sony released PSPs in North America. Mm-hmm. So this is the first iteration of the PSP software in North America. And it was pretty bad because players could download Ubisoft's Luminous, Coded Arms from Konami, Puzzle Bobble by Taito, and even Sony's own game, Intelligent License, like the one they self-published. And you could just get those for free and then put them on those cards and play them on your PSP. So, because like, I get hacking like a third-party title, but if you are able to get one of Sony's licensed published games, that's kind of a very big loophole for you to get through.
Yeah.
So it's important to note this only worked on the 1.5 firmware, and that was all the PSPs in the US at the time. Sony very quickly then released 1.51 in response to the hacking, but people found a ways around it eventually. You know, like initially, modified PSP users allowed users to run custom code and a limited amount of protected software. So you could make your own like custom made PSP applications. I know they said like having just a calculator or even just a file manager, that was a pretty popular one because then you could go through and sort through all the stuff you have on there. So just like kind of I guess it would be, maybe you could say it's like an OS, but it's just a file manager so you can go through applications quickly that way. Sony just kept upgrading the software over and over and over again. But some users were able to unlock firmware that allowed them like more custom content and even like DRM restricted software, so they could just break that. You could pretty much break anything on it. Is kind of what I gathered from it. Like it's pretty bad. And
I remember at the time, because like you could download firmware updates over the internet, but there wasn't always a huge incentive to actually update to like a not hackable firmware. So like, great, Sony released firmware 1.51, but nobody had any reason to install it because not a whole lot of things were going online on the PSP at the time, and like games didn't necessarily require it. And so I remember every time a firmware would get hacked, it would be really exciting, and you would like use the firmware, and then Sony would release an update, and what they ended up having to do was make these updates worth updating to. So I remember when the 2.0 update came out, and it had a web browser built in, and it had a couple other like really cool features. I was like, shoot, man, I really want my PSP to be able to do this stuff. But if I want to keep using my hacked firmware, if I want to keep using like my homebrew emulators and stuff, I can't update. And so there was always this like careful like balancing act that of like trying to decide if it was worth it to lose homebrew in order to upgrade. And you're like, I wonder how long I would have to lose homebrew for. It was like a very interesting time to be like into this sort of scene, like balancing those two things.
Yeah. Also, didn't it? The whole system of like memory sticks and stuff with the PSP also made it really easy to hack in homebrew, right? Just the hardware in general, like because you could just stick in. Putting whatever you wanted onto the PSP was pretty easy. It was just getting that stuff to run.
But I think it ended up making Sony, like every large update to firmware had to have something big, like a really cool feature that would make people want to upgrade to it if they wanted people to give up their homebrew. Like you can't just like release a thing that's like, this one fixes homebrew, because like no one will upgrade to it.
Yeah. They're like, no. So actually, you could say that hacking drove advancements in the PSP.
I fully think so, yeah.
So they actually have a couple of the custom firmware titles. I don't know if this means anything to
man, these
people.
get real good.
The M33 custom firmware, the minimum edition, the MELME CFWM, and then the Pro CFWI. And those were the most common of the ones that would like. But you mentioned a guy. You said you had a guy that you knew.
Yeah, there was a guy, like PSP homebrew had been pretty cool, and it had been going on for a while, and it was like a little bit of a hassle. Like you kind of had to do some rejiggering to make things work all the time. But then a person named Dark Alex hit the scene and started releasing all these custom firmwares that and he was very fast too with like Sony would release an update and then the custom version would come out pretty quickly afterwards, and like nobody could figure out like, man, how's this guy doing it? And he was like a kind of a legend in the scene for a long time, and all his firmwares would be like the Dark Alex edition of the firmware. And I used a lot of Dark Alex firmware. And then one day he just kind of disappeared. I think the general consensus is that he was like probably hired by Sony to like help them secure the PSP, because one day he disappeared, and like custom firmwares would keep coming out after that from like other groups, but they definitely slowed down for sure.
Oh wow. Did you know that Dark Alex was unmasked?
Oh, he was?
Yeah. Hacker Dark Alex, custom firmware, was a student from Spain by day.
Oh.
And Dark Alex derived his moniker from his real name, Alejandro. And he's apparently very into goth, and he loves manga and cats. And there's a quote from him on here. He says, "I think it is up to users to make the correct decisions about how to use my software. Quote, I believe in the presumption of innocence, unlike the media companies." So he's very much against the man. This is an Engadget article I just found. Like, so that's cool, though. I mean, I like that it's just a student. That's pretty crazy that he could make them come out so quickly? Like just the speed.
Yeah, he was a total monster at the time, and I remember every time a new Sony firmware would come out with something cool, I'd be like, no, just wait for the Dark Alex version. And it didn't take very long before you got the Dark Alex version.
That's so cool. Well, I have a quote here from Peter Dillon. He's Sony's senior vice president of marketing in 2009. In an interview, he said that piracy of video games was leading to lower sales than hoped. So you'd think it would actually lead to higher sales, but the fact is probably people could keep their PSPs for longer and they wouldn't buy new ones.
That's a tenuous link. I think there are I think there are studies on both sides that say, like, I mean, the logic is, well, if I don't have to buy a game and I pay nothing for it, obviously that's a lost sale. But then there's also the thought of like, well, I wasn't going to buy all 200,000 PSP games that I have on my PSP, so they weren't lost sales. I was going to buy maybe 5 of them, right? And so it's like it's a very I think there's probably studies on both sides, but I always take it with a grain of salt when a video game executive is like, hey, piracy is leading to lower sales than we thought. I'm like, well, maybe not, but...
Yeah, also, I mean, you're a millionaire. You're fine. Okay. So the only real Sony move they had, other than updating the firmware, is they sent out multiple press releases that were like, hey, if you do this stuff, it might hurt your PSP, or void the warranty. They love the void the warranty thing. But then no one cared. So really what happened is, I guess I'm just trying to sum it up as, it's an amazing homebrew console, and Sony couldn't do anything. That's pretty much the
there was another
TLDR.
A way to hack PSPs was it was discovered that like the way that they fixed PSPs at the factory had to do with the way the battery was configured. And so you could buy these, they were called Pandora batteries, and you would take out the battery that was in your PSP and you put this Pandora battery in, and it would like effectively like grant you access to the console to be able to like downgrade the firmware if you had upgraded to one that had been fixed already, and like you could downgrade and then hack that firmware. It's very interesting of like having to buy these special batteries.
Pandora batteries. That's cool. I didn't find that in any of the stuff I looked up.
Yeah, there's a great video by a YouTuber named The Modern Vintage Gamer he put out very recently that like really goes in depth on the PSP hacking scene, which is pretty cool because that guy he's in a lot of those hacking scenes. Like he did a lot of the original Xbox hacking, Xbox 360 hacking, and PSP stuff, I think, too. So anyway, check that video out.
Well, yeah, everyone go check out that video. And now, Tyler, you want to talk about the models. There were multiple models of the PSP, and we're going to go through them right now.
We got a lot of models of the PSP. So we got the original, the PSP 1000, the thick boy here. It is objectively the worst of all of them, in my opinion. It was a launch model, so that's fine. It had 32 megs of RAM, and it was 23 millimeters thick. It was also the most hackable because it could run the lower firmwares that were needed to run to be able to hack. So for a while, if you had a fat PSP, you knew you were always going to be able to get that latest DAX firmware to run on it. But that one's not super interesting. The more interesting one is the PSP 2000.
I like how they named them after the Terminators, right? That's what they were going for? T1000.
Yes, I think that's exactly what they were going for.
I hope that's what they did.
The Slim released in 2007, and they cut the device's thickness by about 4.4 millimeters, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it's actually pretty noticeable if you had a Slim one and then went back to your fat one. It was a noticeable downsize. This version upgraded the internal RAM to 64 megabytes, which allowed it to do things like run Skype, which you had to get. I think there was an external camera that you could do Skype with. This also improved load times, though, even for games that weren't made to support 64 megs of RAM. They would still load faster because they did some magic to make them load faster with that extra RAM. That was really important because the games, if you remember, came on those UMDs, and UMDs have long load times because they're disk-based, and that's just kind of the nature of optical media, slow load times. So they also improved the D-pad, and this is really cool. You could buy, they added a video out feature, so you could buy cables that plugged into like the headphone jack, and there was a smaller serial port next to that headphone jack, and you could hook your PSP up to your TV. Granted that it was a TV that had that supported progressive scan, which was not every TV at the time. It was most newer TVs in 2007. But if you were like a person running on your like older like parents' hand-me-down TVs or something like that, especially if you were a broke college kid such as myself, you probably didn't have a TV with progressive scan, which was a little bit of a bummer. But it was kind of cool to be able to play PSP games on your on your TV. They looked a little weird on the full size screen because they were definitely made for a smaller screen, but it was definitely a cool like party trick. They also upgraded the screen so it was clearer and brighter, and it had a little bit less motion blur. And I think this one's often overlooked. The PSP Slim can charge from a USB cable, which the original PSP could not do. You had to plug it into
very important.
Yeah. So it charged a lot slower off the USB cable, but it was still pretty neat. It still had the main port for like plugging in the actual PSP charger, so you didn't lose any functionality there. The Slim was still pretty hackable once they broke the security on it. The whole thing was pretty good. That's probably like my favorite version of the PSP. The next one is the PSP 3000, or some call it the Super Slim. They released this one 1 year later in 2006 that had a brand new screen that was like brighter and clearer, but it had some weird interlacing issues. So it was like parts of it were better, but then parts of it were worse. And so that's what I think the parts that make it worse, make it way worse than the PSP Slim screen, even though some of it's better. But the 3000 also added a microphone, which you could use for Skype and probably a handful of games that supported it. It also had TV out as well, but you could use it in interlaced mode and like composite cables. So you could plug it into any TV and play your PSP games on your TV, which was super duper cool.
Also, you said 2006. It's 2008, right?
Oh, did I say 2006? My bad.
Yeah, so, no, it's okay. I just wanted to make that clear, because I feel like in podcasts in general, like if you say something wrong, there's people like screaming in their. I picture people wearing their headphones or in their car, like yelling at you until you correct it. So I'm like, we should.
It was 2008. Being so angry. I'm so sorry. If I made you get angry in your car on the way to work, I apologize.
Yeah, but if you're just angry all the time, then we don't apologize.
Yeah, if you're just a general angry person, and I don't know, seek help.
Yeah, that's right.
The next version was a large redesign that they released in 2009 called the PSP Go, also known as the PSP N1000.
Does this one stand for new?
Probably.
The new 1000? Probably.
Yeah. It was completely redesigned. Up to this point, all the PSPs were basically the same like overall form factor. They were just slightly different in some areas. But the PSP Go looked more like a phone than it did a PSP. It had a slide out, like, remember in 2008, 2009 when phones would have like a slide out keyboard?
Oh, do I remember? I wanted one so bad.
Yeah, everybody thought that they wanted that, and then it turns out that touchscreens are actually just fine for typing. But the PSP Go had one of those, only it wasn't a keyboard, it was a gamepad with all the PSP controls on it. So it was like phone size. The screen was a little bit smaller, but it slid out and could play games, which was super cool. What they did here that's special with the PSP Go is they got rid of the UMD drive, which was probably the right call. By 2009, download speeds have gotten fast enough, and the storage space in flash drives had gotten cheap enough that it was economical to actually download games and store them on the device. So the PSP Go came with 16 gigs of built-in memory. Now remember, a UMD disk holds 1.8 gigs, so that's the max size that any PSP game could be used, 1.8 gigs.
I'm going to just say this, 16 gigs for 2009, that seems like a lot, right? For a handheld?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
That's a lot, right?
Yeah. It was a little expensive, too, to get that. And it could also be expanded if you used Sony's proprietary memory stick micro, which totally didn't look and feel like regular micro SDs, but they definitely cost more. You could expand that to 32 gigs. So you could hold a lot of games on this thing if you're thinking 2 gigs a game. That's, 10, 15 games easy, if you want to have room for music and whatnot. So that's pretty good. There were some games that never became available on the PlayStation Store. I'm pretty sure Birth by Sleep, Kingdom Hearts, was never available for digital download on the PSP. And so PSP Go never got to play it. You could get around it if you hacked the PSP Go. PSP Go remained impenetrable for a little while in terms of hacks, but it did eventually get cracked wide open, same as any other PSP. So, yeah. It also had Bluetooth built in, so you could use Bluetooth headphones with it, but you could also connect a PlayStation 3 DualShock 3 controller up to it. So when you plug your PSP Go into your TV screen, you could kick back on the couch with your PS3 controller and pretend you're playing a PS3 game. It was super cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, PSP Go is great. I think if you're just getting into the PSP scene and you can get a PSP Go with hackable firmware, I'm not sure if you need to be looking for any specific version, or if just every PSP Go is hackable or not. I think that's the way to go right now if you're brand new to it and don't have any UMD games, and you have like big enough memory stick cards. I think I want to say for the older PSPs that use Memory Stick Pro Duos, which is a little bit bigger than the Memory Stick Micros, I think you can get converters now that convert cheap micro SD cards to work with that. So that may be better for you if you want to have tons of games. You might want to go micro SD and use a converter. But
here's a note for our listeners: you can get a eBay Sony PSP Go Launch Edition 16 gigabytes on eBay for $100.
Wow,
no tax.
That's a pretty good deal.
You can get one over here too for $95, no tax. It's the N1001 Piano Black handheld game console. Ooh, look at you. Yeah, so if you want to get it, it's like $100. You can get it. Also, they still sell it on Amazon right here. It says so. That's $155 on Amazon.
Oh, man. That's tempting. It's tempting to pick up a PSP Go.
I think that's it's free shipping also, and I think it's it's used. It's very good. It says, but yeah, this is a cool looking console. Just looking at it, it's like, oh man,
yeah,
it's really cool.
It's neat, and the way it looks like a phone was cool. I
love it.
I think it's pretty cool. I think you could use the Bluetooth to tether to your phone too if you want to have internet anywhere. I may be wrong about that, but that'd be cool.
I love it.
We have one more model of the PSP, the E1000, the Street, PSP Street. This was a budget version of the PSP. They went back to the form factor of the original PSP, so kind of horizontal, no slide out keyboard, no nothing like that. They did add the UMD drive back in, but it didn't have Wi-Fi, so it wasn't like that cool. Because at that point in time,
what was their play here? Why?
I guess maybe they did research and they were like, not that many people play PSP games online, or not that many people need Wi-Fi with their PSP. They just want to play their PSP games. I guess if you're trying to make a budget version of it, I don't know. That still seems like a really lame thing to cut out, especially when 7 years earlier in 2004, the original had Wi-Fi. It's like, you can't afford that now? I don't know. It's not great, and it didn't sell very well, especially because shortly thereafter, they launched the PS Vita. So it was like, why did you do that? Why didn't you just not do that? And you could have saved all that money. I don't know. Maybe they made money on it. Who knows? But I have never seen anybody use one of those in the wild. Nintendo did a similar thing with their Wii when they released the Wii Junior in like Canada, and I think they released it in the US too, where it was like a Wii with no GameCube ports, so you couldn't play GameCube games, and it had no Wi-Fi. And it was like, what? Okay, so it was like it couldn't even be a Netflix box. Like, what is this trend of like removing Wi-Fi from things? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm on right now. Full disclosure, surfing Amazon right now. I can't find a Street to save my life.
Yeah,
PSP
because
Street.
nobody wants them, especially now.
Yeah.
If you're trying to buy a PSP, you're not trying to get a Street version now. If you're that interested, you'll spend $2 more to get whatever version has Wi-Fi.
Get the Go or get the 3000.
Yeah, I think the Wi-Fi or the Go is definitely the way to go these days.
The 3000 is listed as the best seller on Amazon, just so everyone knows.
Yeah, that one's still a good choice too. The one that I had was a white slim Star Wars version, so it's got Darth Vader on the back. I actually found it the other day, and the back had popped off. The battery had swollen up, so I might need to find a new battery somewhere.
Get you a Pandora battery.
Yeah, get me a Pandora battery, and man, I wonder what firmware that thing's running. I bet it's hacked. Dang,
oh, yeah?
I'll fire that up. Yeah, to plug it in, fire it up.
New project for Tyler.
Woohoo!
All right, so if we're gonna say, obviously, we want you to play video games within the full extent of the law, because no one here's a lawbreaker. But if you were going to get a PSP and you were going to learn how to hack it for fun and learning,
and for playing
cheating,
emulators and all sorts of backups of games you definitely own.
You already own, yes. We would recommend the 3000 or the Go. Is that what no, you're saying the Slim and the Go, the 2000. And
I think any of them that are not the Street or the original. I think the original screen is like kind of blurry now. Like you can definitely, when you play games on it, you can tell that it's like not super high quality. I think a 2000 is a good option. 3000 is fine. Go is great if you can stomach the extra cost for those memory stick micros.
Yeah, because I actually saw those are also on sale on Amazon when you look at a PSP or those memory sticks.
Oh yeah, I bet.
It's like people who also bought this also bought, and it's just like a bunch of different size memory sticks all the way up and down. So, all right. Well, I think it's for educational experiences. We taught people about that today. Never again. Obviously, you own all the games, and you're just doing this fully legally. So now, do you want to talk about the legacy of the PSP?
Yeah, let's do a little bit of a wrap up on the PSP. So, as Sony's first foray into portable gaming, I think it's a success. It's sold 73 million units worldwide, which is a lot of units. I know it's only half of what the DS sold, but I think it's still I don't think video game sales are a zero-sum game where if you don't win, that means you lost. I think the PSP did okay, and I think it had a lot of really cool games. I loved what Sony was trying to do here. This period of time in 2004 to 2010 was a transition in technology, because we wouldn't get smartphones wouldn't become mainstream until probably 2008, 2009 with the iPhone 3G and 3GS. Even the original iPhone was not great, and it was super expensive. But in 2004, I think Sony saw a little bit into the future and saw that, hey, in the future, everybody is going to have all of their portable devices, and it's all going to be one thing. What they didn't know was that it was going to start with the phone, and the phone was just going to gobble up everything else. But they came at it from the angle of the video game console, which is an angle you can come at it. Looking back, of course, it wasn't the best plan, but that was Sony's best bet for converging everything. The PSP played movies, it played music, it played games, and it did it all in an online, forward-thinking kind of way. And yeah. So ultimately, the device that was going to be in everyone's pocket was the cell phone. But I think Sony made an excellent play to try to make it the PSP, even if that part didn't work out. I think it proved you could have console quality games on a portable device. It was 3D. The games really felt like they were console quality, especially games like Grand Theft Auto, Vice City Stories, and Liberty City Stories. That felt like playing a PS2 game in your pocket, straight up. And in fact, those games did come out on PS2 a little bit later, those two specifically. They made some mistakes with the PSP, especially in some of that marketing you were talking about. It was also fairly expensive, and I think locking everything to their proprietary memory stick format was maybe not the best choice for the consumer. Maybe Sony can prove that they made more money that way. I'm not sure about that. The UMDs, I think, were a product of a little bit of an older time being adapted to work in the new world. I don't know what a better way to do it would have been at the time, because flash cards that held 1.8 gigs worth of data in 2004 would have been super expensive. DS games were not that large. And DS cartridges, I think the largest is 256 megs. I don't know. Way, way, way smaller than UMDs. And downloading games didn't really become viable until the later part of the PSP lifecycle when they launched the PSP Go. But I think in spirit, the PSP lived on a little while longer. Sony released a phone in 2010 called the Xperia Play. It was an Android phone that did all the phone things, but it had that same slide-out gamepad that the PSP Go did. I think it was neat, and I'm a little bummed that Sony didn't explore that a little bit further. I always thought they shouldn't have made the PS Vita at all. I think they should have sold an Android phone that had exclusive games, and that they could have been the device in everybody's pocket that way, because you would have bought the Sony phone because you wanted to play the cool Sony games. But they would give it another try with the PS Vita, which I think we'll cover later on down the line. They only stopped manufacturing the PS Vita in March of this year, 2019. So it was just a couple of months ago. So it's we'll explore it later when it becomes history and has had a little bit more time to digest.
I want to go back. That's a great idea. If they'd have just, instead of made a PS Vita, make an Android phone that had PlayStation. Imagine if they made, and I guess, I don't know when if this is really the time of the exclusivity, but they had God of War around then. You could have had a PS Vita, you could have had an Android phone with a really cool full Sony financed God of War game on it. That would have sold.
That would have sold, and they could have sold, which they did sell older, they sold PlayStation games, wrapped up in an emulator that worked on the Xperia Play. I think they did the right things. I think what Sony failed to do with that was really, really push it and say, no PS Vita, we're making Android phones, and they're going to play all these games, and maybe they sold PSP games on them, they could have sold PSP games on them, would have been cool. That would have been the way to go, and I think that would make a compelling reason to buy a Sony phone. I know I need to buy a phone, And right now it's like, oh, do I want to buy an Android phone or do I want to buy an iPhone? It could have been Android, iPhone, or Sony, with Sony having all the advantages of Android as well, because they could have just been like, yeah, we run Android, but if you want to play our exclusive games, you got to buy our phone. And so it would make that, I think, a no-brainer as long as the phone part of it was like halfway
Functional.
decent. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that they would have had the advantage over both Apple and the rest of Android phone manufacturers, at least with gamers. And like, that's a pretty big market. But as it stands now, I have to have a phone. I'm going to buy a phone. Am I going to buy a PS Vita? Well, I don't know. But if I could get a PS Vita that I knew would run Android apps and PS Vita games, yeah, it makes that decision a little bit easier, assuming
I could
the phone's
check
good.
my email in between games of Twisted Metal or whatever.
That's
okay.
right.
I have a hypothetical question for you, just for funsies, to close this out, because we're ending the history of the PSP this week, and then next week we'll do the games, and we need you to send us the games. Send us games. We have our own games list we've started already, but
It has
we need
games.
more. It has so many games. We need to cover these games, and there's so many of them. So if you want to email us, codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. Okay, Tyler.
Yeah.
This phone came out, this Android phone you're saying that's a Sony. What are
Xperia
your
Play?
Yeah, well, yeah, this yeah, this is your phone. Okay. Your idea. What, let's say exclusive, give me your 3 exclusive PlayStation titles you would want on that phone.
Oh.
I can start. I think I got some.
Yes. All right.
I already mentioned one. I would want Twisted Metal on it, especially if you could do Wi-Fi, like play it over Wi-Fi against people around you. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think I would want to have. I'm thinking about the PlayStation games I played exclusively, like what I played. I don't. Well, this is definitely not. Well, actually, it was. Wasn't Grand Theft Auto was a PlayStation exclusive for a bit, right?
Not for
wasn't
very long.
GTA
It came
3
out
on PlayStation only for a while, and then it released on
for,
Xbox later.
I want to say like 6 months, I think. Then it hit PC and Xbox. It was not as long as I thought. I actually looked this up kind of recently. I can't remember why, but I thought that it was like years before these games were on the Xbox, and it really was only like a couple months, I think.
Okay, I've only played it a little bit, so I'm going to say Uncharted is what I would want also on
Yeah,
this
that
hypothetical
Golden
system.
Abyss game that they made for PS Vita. I would definitely want that. Like any of those games for sure, yeah.
And then my last one, I never really played God of War, so I don't want to play God of War on it. I want to pick things that I like played, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, it's not an exclusive, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm going to break my own rules. Tony Hawk. You got to have a Tony Hawk game. That would be so much fun to have it on, like, especially if it's like thinking about us. Okay, we're in college at this time, Tyler, you and me. This would be around like what, like 2009, 2010?
When this phone came out?
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. That's exactly right.
So I'm like a junior in college. I get this phone, and then we hang out. Oh, you know what else is going on in this craze too, man? Hand Cramp Hero.
Yeah. Hand Cramp Hero.
You can play Hand Cramp Hero on this, or Rock Band or whatever. Oh, man. Okay, so what are your 3 games you think that you would want to play? I know one of them for sure. Can I guess one of your games right now?
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid.
Yes. Peace Walker. Give me that Peace Walker. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. So actually, this will be a good one to talk about next week too. But so while the DS had Hand Cramp Hero, the PSP also got a rhythm game in the form of Rock Band Unplugged, which is actually really fun, and it didn't have a hand cramp accessory for it. It functioned differently. It used the game. It was more of a just rhythm game and not a less like playing an instrument game. But it functioned actually very similar to Harmonix's older games in frequency and amplitude. But it was really good, and I would love that on my PlayStation phone. And then just keep selling me music for it. I just play it forever.
Oh yeah. Wait. What? Is it unplugged? As in like straight up like an MTV unplugged? Like it was all acoustic?
No, it was not all acoustic. It was unplugged in that it was portable, and you could unplug it from the wall and take it with you.
Ah, okay. I was slightly
But it's one of my
confused
favorite
there.
versions of Rock Band. And actually, there was a version of it released for I want to say the 360 and PS3. I think it was called Rock Band Blitz, which is basically the same game, but not portable.
Oh, that's cool. So you got one more
Anyway,
game.
I love that game.
So you did
One
Metal
more
Gear.
game.
You did Guitar Hero. Well, you did the Rock Band Unplugged.
Give me Ratchet and Clank. I want that series in general, like just either a brand new game or a remake Ratchet and Clank games.
Dude, that's great. I played so much Twisted Metal. That was like my PlayStation game I played the most of. So that's what I always think of when I think of PlayStation is Twisted Metal. I don't know, because they've kind of given up on that series, right? They had Twisted Metal Black, and then that was kind of like a dud. And then it's like, I think this is over.
Yeah. Wasn't there rumors or something? Wasn't there one going to happen kind of recently?
I thought so. I don't know. But hey, we really feel like we really crushed that PlayStation Portable game. We just did it.
Yeah, we did it.
We really crushed it. Hey, Tyler, what you been playing?
I've been playing World of Final Fantasy still. Put a few more hours into that one this week. It's just so fun. It's so cool to come across all the old Final Fantasy characters. Like I recently came across Tifa from Final Fantasy VII, and also there's like Refia and Ferris from Final Fantasy V. So much fun. I love it. I wish I was putting more time into it, but I've been spending a lot of my leisure time this week actually reading comic books, because a certain comic book movie just dropped that I went to go see and enjoyed. And so I've just been in like comics mode of like read all the Marvel comics. So
we both went and saw it, but we're not going to talk about it at all because I don't want to get into that bucket of syrup of spoilers.
That's right.
This is not a Avengers Endgame podcast. This is a video game history podcast.
Right. We both liked it. Cool. All right. I picked up Skyrim again because I'm back from my big trip. I'm really enjoying it. And then also my brother and I started picking up Battlefield 5 again. And it's the Firestorm mode is kind of fun. Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's just kind of too little too late. But they've also added these weekly event missions, kind of, is how I would describe it, where you play a certain game mode and you get a new gun at the end of it.
Ooh.
It's kind of, yeah, so we like have been like, and this, like you can grind those out in like 2 to 3 hours. I've been having serious internet problems all week because it turns out the cord between the modem and the router just crapped out on us, essentially.
Oh, dang it.
Yeah, but it's weird because the guy's like, yeah, this doesn't happen that often, but your Ethernet cord just was busted and it was going really slow. And I'm like, oh, and he changed the cord out and it was just fixed everything. It was really strange. But
well, hey.
Yeah. Hey, it's fixed now. So, but yeah, I haven't been playing that many online games because of that, but I jumped into Battlefield with my brother and that was really, really fun. And then Destiny, but I kind of slowed down on that because we were just discussing how there's like not a lot to do right now.
Yeah, there's some stuff that like I want to get the gun from the new event that's going on right now, but I don't feel super pressured to do it, and I haven't played it all this week, Destiny-wise.
Yeah, and then we did the mission for the Drifter, and then we both like stopped at the exact same part, just like, whoa, we forgot. I just haven't been doing the page part, but it's all good. I'm hoping that I can play some newer games this week. We'll see. I gotta try. The problem is, I don't know about you, but I'm the kind of person that gets stuck in a video game, and then I play it, and I play it, and I play it, and I play it without switching, instead of like playing a multitude of games at the same time. I feel like my brain can't keep up with a story, so I have to stay and play one for way too long.
Yeah.
But it's been good. So all in all, again, one more reminder. If please, if you have any games you want us to talk about for the PSP, send them to us at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. I think the email is the way to go. If you tweet them to us, you can do that, but we might miss your tweet, and I don't want to do that. I won't miss an email, but I will miss a tweet. You know what I mean? But you can find Tyler on Twitter at SneakerElph. You can find me on Twitter at mecoletta, MECOLETTA. You could send us a Valentine. I don't know, like a late Valentine.
Send us a Mother's Day card.
Send us a Mother's Day card. You could. Oh yeah, when is Mother's Day? Okay, I got to keep track of that. It's in May.
Couple more
right?
weeks. Yep.
We got some time. So everyone, don't forget to send your mom something for Mother's Day. That's our reminder to all the listeners. And with that, I think next week we'll dive into some more games for the PSP, and then I don't know where we're gonna go, but we might start breaking off of this timeline thing and start doing something a little interesting.
It's an open world.
It's an open world out there. All right, Tyler, do you want to say bye to the listener right now for me?
Yes. Goodbye, listener.